I'm a musician. I'm a saxophone player, composer, educator, improviser, and I've been involved in what is called jazz, I suppose, for want of a better word, for over 40 years. And teaching in higher education, 35 years at the Royal Academy of Music, 18 at the Guildhall School of Music, Drama, and 22, 23 years at Trinity, Laban. I've performed all over the world and received Arts Council funding for tours, and done like 25 CDs under my own name and played with international musicians, you know. So I'm sort of established in that, what people would call a jazz scene. So Trinity Laban, a year ago, the principal sent an email to all students and all staff promoting his BLM, Black Lives Matter, diversity action plan. And in two places, one within the main document of the action plan, and then in an email, a short email edition, which the action plan was attached to, he asked for feedback. So my opinion is different from the BLM diversity action plan that he was stated. Overall, my points were, I don't really see any racism or discrimination that you're implying or openly stating going on at Trinity Laban or in the wider music, the jazz scene that I knew very well for the last 40 years. So I just gave him my feedback. And in a way, it doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong, really. I was just giving feedback, and right at the beginning I said, can we have a discussion about this? So that was the initial email, February last year. My email was sent to the principal, copied into my line manager, I suppose, head of jazz, who was a friend of mine for 30 years, and also copied it to the director of music. So I sent it to 3 people by email. And then a few weeks later, I happened to be chatting to a student about the issue of jazz, race, just that whole area of interest. And so I shared it with a student. He didn't share it with anyone else. And we had a chat the next day after he'd read it. And then I didn't think any more of it. I know for a fact, because I've seen internal emails that I was able to get by DSAR, which is Data Search Access Request. I've seen internal emails which show that they read it on the day I sent it. And I didn't get a response for 5 weeks. The director of music, 5 weeks later, said, "Oh, thank you for your email. Sorry for the delay. Yeah, please come in and let's have a discussion about this because there's a lot in your email. Too much to talk about by email." So that's a good response. Then the next morning, I received another email from him saying, "Oh, due to your email getting into the hands of students, we are temporarily," one of them is anxious, "we are temporarily halting your classes from next week." This was on a Friday morning. I thought, wow, that's interesting. So what's all that about? And the student's anxious. So I went to the student I'd shared it with. I said, "What's going on? Have you given this email to loads of students?" He said, "No, but I happened to read it out to 5 or 6 students at different times because they were talking about you or talking about the subject. And I wanted to clarify with them." To his credit, he wanted to clarify my opinion at that moment in time on the issue of race and jazz. Now, the story I've been told is that one of the students that the original student shared it with was angry, upset about my email, and went into the head of jazz, and or maybe on that Thursday evening, I think, and complained about my email. But I don't know the exact words, but I was told by the head of jazz, "Oh, we had to calm him down. He was flailing around. He was upset. He was angry about your email." Okay, fair enough. So my point all along is, why didn't you call me in then? And let's all have a chat about it like adults with the student. And so that idea was totally bypassed. And the head of jazz went directly to the head of music, who I'd copied the email into originally, and said this had happened. And then the head of music said, "Right, we'll temporarily halt Martin's classes, and we're going to look into a disciplinary procedure here because of the outrageous things you've said in that email." They were threatening disciplinary procedure. This was on the Monday after the weekend, and when my lessons were temporarily halted. I was due to meet the head of jazz and 3 other colleagues to talk about performances. The head of jazz texted me and cancelled the meeting, and I said, "Why have you done that?" And he didn't tell me. Then I find out they have a meeting of the whole jazz course, 95 students, 4 years, undergraduates and postgrads, a few postgrads, about my email. So, but they weren't sharing it because they hadn't asked my permission. One student who had it wouldn't share it, to his credit. As far as I can work out, because one student was still in touch with me, and I would say is one student who was probably on board with what I was saying, actually. But of course, none of them can say that publicly now. But so he texted me from the meeting. He said, "They're having a meeting about your email, about you." Oh, God. I said, "What's going on then?" And he kind of said, "Well, they're all kind of running where no one knows what's going on. A few people are ranting, others are already confused." And what it was with the head of jazz, the director of music, and HR, interestingly, HR person. No, I wasn't there. No other members of staff invited, and no one knew about it apart from all the students. And I've asked for minutes of this meeting. They said, "Oh no, it was informal." You have an informal meeting of 95 students about this subject matter. So my view is that the students were the idea was to exacerbate the situation. Rather than get me in, talk about it with the original student who complained, and let's agree to disagree, or, calm the student down, like, be adults. Prior to this, what was another interesting point is that I'd emailed the student I shared it with and the student who was anxious, because they told me who it was. I emailed them and copied the head of jazz into it, so it wasn't clandestine, it wasn't secret. And I said, "How about the 4 of us meeting and sorting this out?" And to their credit, the student said, "That's a really good idea. Although I disagree with your email, but I'm sure we can resolve this." That's impressive, actually. And so that was taken out of their hands because the head of music said, "No, I don't want you to meet the students before you meet me." Maybe that week, I can't remember when it was that week, I think they asked me to resign. It might be that morning, actually. They said, "Will you consider resigning?" Immediately, they thought about that in the first week, before anything was done, no disciplinary procedure. So that they had that meeting. The next morning, they called me in for a meeting with the same people, the same players, director of music and the head of jazz, to discuss my email. And I don't think I had any much sleep, and the head of jazz had not had much sleep. So there was a lot of stress going on. And he said, the students insist, they want to see your email. You should send it out to the students. They really insist. If not, there's going to be a revolution, and I fear for your safety. He said he fears for my safety. So what does that mean? That the students will be violent and they're not going to protect me? That was pretty shocking, actually. I fear for your safety. So no stage they wanted to sort this out at all. So I went to the meeting, backwards and forwards all the time, arguing about this, my email. Eventually, I naively agreed, because I'm quite an open person and I wanted the discussion, the email going to the students, thinking it would go no further. I didn't think they'd put it on social media. But then we can eventually have a discussion with the students about these issues that I'm bringing up and the principal's bringing up, because I don't agree with them. I'm supposedly a valued member of staff for 22 years. Why not listen to my opinion and let's talk about it. So it went, and then that was it. Explosion, my life was destroyed then. And I don't know why I'm laughing, because I'm laughing because sometimes I can step back and look at it as if I'm not there. So it went out on social media, and I don't use social media. I use Twitter, but I don't use Facebook. But I was told by others that lots of stuff was going on social media. It was pretty vicious. My email was put on in isolation, and I was being accused of racism and all this stuff. And masses of stuff, and people were shot. Some people dived in apparently to protect me, or support me, and they got shouted down, of course, on social media. So then a postgrad student, put a change.org petition up against me, was not using anything from my email at all, not citing anything, but just saying I was racist and should be removed from my post. And Trinity Laban didn't do anything about that, knowing who it was. And then an ex-student was so incensed, put up a petition in my favour. That was quite impressive. I didn't know anything about this until I was told. The venues that I had gigs at then cancelled my gigs. They sent me emails and said, due to your email, we don't agree with your email. Due to it being online, we're cancelling your gig. And I would write back and say, well, what is it you disagree with? No, we disagree with your email and we're cancelling your gig. And I say, well, I'm not coming to do a speech. I'm just coming to play music. No, we disagree with your email. We're cancelling your gig. That was the kind of thing. There was no nuance. There's been no nuance or any discussion in this at all. It's a nuanced discussion. It's an interesting issue. It's nuanced. And that's the kind of thing we should be having discussions of this in academia or anywhere. We should be able to have discussions and not all get cancelled or fall out. So then my life was shut down. So gigs were cancelled. One venue, Leicester Jazz House, even they were going to do the gig and everything after they'd seen the email and said, well, I'm not coming to make a speech. And they said, oh, you're right. Yeah, the gig's on. And we agreed everything, the fee, contract. And then all of a sudden they changed their mind. I feel like someone got to them, and I don't know whether that's the case. Another venue in Greenwich, which is where Trinity Laban is, and I used to play there all the time, students play there, they cancelled the gig and they said, because the students said they will boycott my venue if you play here. I went on sick leave in March because they temporarily halted my classes. And I went on sick leave for 5 months. Well, not only because of that, because my whole world was falling apart. And obviously I was under a lot of stress, anxiety, felt very isolated. I had support, but my whole life had gone that I'd, in a way, built up and that I lived for. So I went on 5 months. And then they said, we'd like you to come back in September. And we're going to put your classes on as normal. And here are your one-to-one students. So I emailed the one-to-one students. I said, it'd be great to meet you, some first years. Let's fix up some lessons. They never replied. And then the Trinity Laban said, the one-to-one students all come to us and they want to change lessons from you because they're anxious or unhappy with you. No, they didn't even know me, of course. They've been instructed. I'd heard this. Second years instructed the first years to behave like this. Then the two other conservatoires that I teach at went in lockstep. They just said, the students don't want to study with you, one-to-ones, because they're anxious about your email. And that was it. So there's no calling me in. Once again, like in the old days, if someone wants to change teacher, it has to be a big deal. Call the teacher in, call the student in, and the head of the department and talk about the reasons. Nobody has done that because I don't think it would stand up. It's much easier to cancel people, never see them, not look at them, not have a one-to-one conversation. Okay, so my classes are on. No one-to-ones, but 3 days of classes, not full days. I was on a 0.5 job. And I went in 4 days, sometimes 5 days. I'd organise rehearsals with students. I loved it. I had a great time playing with people, hanging out with people, and the teaching. So these classes would probably be about at least half the course, more. Say I would be seeing 60 students a week. Trinity Laban made a kind of pretense, and I sort of believed them. They were going to try and help me and get me back. We think you should have probably going with another member of staff as well. And they never organised that. They didn't do that. They threatened. They said, not a threat, but they said, well, we'll get someone to come in with you to ease the transition to coming back. So I've got these 3 days of classes going, really keen to, no one turns up. So this carried on for 5 weeks. I was going in to fulfill my contract. 3 days of classes, the whole course, half the course. Students were in the courtyard, looking the other way, looking at their phone, ignoring me. These are students I would chat with about anything. By the half term, Trinity Laban said, well, it's not working, is it? The students are not getting their education, so we're going to give your work to some other members of staff. This is a really sad thing as well, that other members of staff jump in immediately. Just basically steal my work, take my work, not come and talk to me about the issue or think, what's he said that's actually terrible? And even, if you don't agree with what he said, why is there not being a discussion with Trinity Laban about this? No, we'll just grab his work. So they said, we're going to give your work to other people, but as you're on a contract, we need to give you some work. So would you research a new master's course in jazz performance and education that we're planning for next year? So they gave me a bit of information about it. No amount of hours. No, I mean, they didn't discuss any hours. How is that going to fulfill a 0.5 contract for a year? That's going to be 5 or 10 hours work. You're doing it in a couple of hours. It was a joke. For me, that was a joke. And that was it. So that's when I resigned, which is what they planned. You know, there was no work for me. I was being ostracized by staff and students, no support from anybody whatsoever, apart from 2 people, staff, who both left since. I can't think anyone who knows me thinks I'm a racist. Bear in mind, I've been teaching black music and my heroes are black. You know, on my wall is Charlie Parker and Ornette Coleman. I've been teaching black music for like 35 years. Just my history is, you know, as a teenager, I got arrested protesting against the National Front, which was a racist organization, marching through my area, Wood Green. So there was a rally of 1,200 National Front marching through Wood Green, and then there was a rally of 3,000 counter rally stopping and marching through. And I got arrested on that, protesting against racism. I was just strongly anti-racist from really young, a child. You know. So that's the sad thing about this. And I think a lot of people know I'm not racist, but they want to pick me up on my stance. What's interesting about this story is that there are many moments all along that it could have been dealt with and not even be in the public domain. Trinity Laban, at many occasions, have suggested, why don't you come in and talk to the students? And I say, yeah, good idea, but I don't want 100 students shouting at me, 95 students. Let's get smaller groups. And they say, yes, a really good idea, yeah. And I said, how about 5 students and another member of staff for half an hour, we can chat about the issues. I said, great idea. And they've never done it. Much better to get rid of me, which is what's happened now. It seems like they wanted to cancel me. Yeah, they wanted to use me in some way to try and prove to themselves or the wider world that we're the most anti-racist conservatoire in the world. This is the kind of, they kind of almost said that in some of their minutes, actually. They did say in one email, the head of brand said, I think it would be good for us if it went, on social media. It could be good for us. And said that. In 2022, and I have it here actually, interestingly, the principal sent out an email on free speech promoting it, which I thought was amazing. The best email he's ever sent to all staff and students promoting free speech. You know, in such an environment, the ideas and views of different members of our communities will naturally often come into conflict. Trinity Laban provides a wide range of mediums where free and frank intellectual exchanges take place and the diverse views of individuals are tolerated. This is just nonsense. The time I was on sick leave, we began the case because their behaviour was totally discriminatory. Totally. They put an online statement in March saying they're in awe of their students' behaviour towards me. We're in awe of you. It's still there on Instagram. They have not taken it down. They're not, I'm told, we said take it down. So now I have 2 legal cases against them in employment discrimination when I was there. And then as they made it untenable, constructive dismissal. I've had a lot of support, very interesting, a lot of support from emails and people have rung me, people have posted stuff online, I think, but sometimes from unexpected quarters. And this is this gradual story that many people who've been cancelled tell me that they've generally, people they've known for ages don't contact them and then they make new friends. And that's what's been happening to me. So it's like reordering my life. People I've known for 40 years have not contacted me. It's like, it's not, they haven't called me, you know, it's like to even talk to me, you know, it's weird actually, because some people won't play with me. They won't play with me until it's all over. But other people who I've known even longer who have not called me. It's just interesting. It's just interesting. What I've noticed is that ordinary people think it's complete nonsense. The whole thing is appalling. Ask anyone on the street. Most people, you know, just if you look at my crowdfunder, the comments are just very moving, actually, I have to say. But So my answer is, yeah, it's going to get worse for a while. We're going to get through it. The students are scared. They're young people scared, brought up in the COVID, George Floyd area where everything's polarized. Everyone's scared to say their own opinion. They can't have an individual opinion against any narrative. And these young people, they're scared to speak their truth. I know some of them agree with me. They said it before this got all blown up. So I think I feel sorry for them, the students, I have to say. The older people, that I don't feel sorry for them. There's total betrayal for all these musicians who would laughingly talk about civil rights in the 60s, right, in America. But my civil rights are out of the question. So it's going to get worse, but we're definitely going to get through it, in my view, in the end.